Okay, so guys, welcome. This is Advanced Objection Handling. We are September 29th. We are week number 40 in the year 2020, the year that all of us probably want to forget, but this is where we're at, and these are the objections that we're getting. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We are going right on time, and like always, we're going to start with just the fundamentals. Number one is you can make up in skills what you lack in numbers. Guys, I'm one of the few people that I know of that really drink their own Kool-Aid and really practice what they preach. I'm role-playing every single morning, at least for 30 minutes. And that's the only way that you're ever going to get good at anything. So when you're new or when you're inexperienced, the only way that you're going to get better, is through practice. That's true in everything, not just in role-play, in sales. Number two, the person who asks the questions control the conversations. I can't say this enough. Telling is not selling. You need to practice asking questions. This is a natural thing that human beings do when you converse with people who you're comfortable with. And what happens is when you're working with people who you're not comfortable with, you just start throwing up information and you just start telling them things. That's not going to do anything for you. Because, number three, you can't change a person's perception or belief. Only they can. And the only way that you can help facilitate that is by asking questions, answering their questions with confidence and with clarity, or rebuttaling their objections with confidence and clarity, and then do a follow-up with a question. Number four, guys, you do not have a lead until you know their why and when. If you don't know somebody's why, if you don't know their when, then all you have is a prospect, right? So, and I really want you guys to think about that. So whenever you're having a conversation, when you're having a sales conversation, when you're having a real estate conversation with a potential buyer or seller, the main objective that you have in your very first conversation is to ask them questions that's going to identify their why and their when. Why is their motivation? When is the temperature gauge of their motivation, right? Why are you moving? Because I got a new job. Great. When are you going to have to be there? I have to be there in 3 years. There's no motivation, right? I have to be there in 3 weeks. Ton of motivation, right? Not all contacts are the same. Not all prospects are the same. Not all leads are the same. And then the last one is, when in doubt, mirror their objection as a question. I use this on the daily. For those of you that are in my office that talk to me, you can probably vouch that I actually use this daily. When somebody asks me a question, I mirror that question with an objection, or excuse me, I mirror that objection or that question in the same context, but as a question, and then naturally you will provide a little bit more information, and then I can deal with that. Okay, so guys, moving on. I think we're going to have time for a few different ones today. These are coming off of the role play schedule, and this was yesterday's objection, and the objection is, I don't see any of your signs. Do you sell any homes in my area? So I don't see any of your signs. Do you sell any homes in my area? So let me pause this screen share, guys. If I can find out where I'm at. I'm lost in these screens. Okay, so guys, I don't see any of your homes or your signs. Do you sell homes in my area? Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you don't see any signs in my area? Okay, look what I just did, guys. I repeated their question as a question. And now naturally, their mind's gonna go, well, yeah, you know, you say that you sell a lot of homes and I don't see any of your signs in your area. You know, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you know, that's a really valid concern, right? I acknowledged what they had just said. I heard them. I repeated them. They know that I'm on the same board as them. But what I said was that I sell a lot of homes. And I list a lot of homes, but I also sell a lot of homes. My homes don't typically linger on the market. So perhaps, do you think that maybe because you haven't seen any of my signs in the yard is because my job is to sell properties and not to just list properties? Could that perhaps be a possibility? Guys, see how I responded to that? And then I asked a question. You know, perhaps could that be a possibility? If I just said, well, look, I don't list homes, I sell homes. Quiet. And then you're allowing them to say something. They're allowing them like, whoa, oh my God. So I don't see any of your homes signs. Now, here's the thing. Depending on where you're at in your business, there's a lot of real estate agents that their business plan is to do everything for everybody everywhere, right? Their service area is the maximum version of what you can see on Google Maps, right? I'm in Orange County. Some people service area might extend out to Nevada. So if you don't focus on if you don't do a whole lot of business in that immediate area, you need to do a level shift and you need to tie it into your company's volume. Well, Mrs. Seller, I can see why that's a concern. You don't see any of our company signs in the area. Now look, I changed that from seeing my signs to seeing our company signs. You don't see any of our company signs in the area. You don't see any Keller Williams Irvine anywhere. No, I don't. Well, that's interesting. But the truth of the matter is, our job is to sell homes, not to list homes. Perhaps the reason why you may not see them, or do you think that perhaps the reason why you may not see them is because, we're selling them faster than you actually can drive by them? Is that a possibility? Well, yeah, that's a possibility. And then you go into your other talk track, right? But if you don't have the area, you have to tie that. You have to turn that into a conversation about your company. If your company doesn't do a whole lot of business, look, guys, I'm not a miracle worker. I can't fix everything. But if you don't have a whole lot of listings in a given area, and your company doesn't have a whole lot of listings in a given area, then you really need to probably do a song and dance on that. Kind of maybe fake it till you make it. Not a fan of that whole kind of philosophy. You might want to consider aligning with a larger company that has a larger reach, right? So when I was in Utah, I owned one of the largest, I grew one of the largest independent firms in my market. And I can tell you that one of the objections that I always came up with was service, competing against a name brand. And when somebody doesn't know you personally, they don't know your name, they don't know your company, you're making your job a lot harder. You're opening yourselves up to walking into objections, right? Unless you've been in that market for 20, 30 years and you're a staple in that market, that's a whole different scenario. We're talking about people who don't know you and they don't know your business. So, but if you are aligned with somebody, if you do have a good marketplace, if they don't see any of your signs, turn that into that your job is to sell homes, not to list homes, and then ask them if it's possible that the reason why they're not seeing our signs is because we're selling them faster than they drive by. And then they'll probably say, well, yeah, that's probably possible. Well, terrific. If you don't mind me asking, what is it that's important to you about choosing a real estate agent when you list your home, right? Then you move on with your talk track. Okay. So that's what I got with that one. Not a really difficult one. It's one of those objections that don't come up very often. Does anyone have any questions on that? Go ahead and hold down the space bar. I want to give you guys some time to ask questions about this objection. Okay, don't ask me about the weather, but about this objection, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Brett, I got a comment.
Let's go, Michael. What do you got?
Yeah, so why not try to turn it toward like internet marketing? Signs really aren't that important. We're supposed to be promoting, or everything's going to the internet, right? And most searches are done on the internet initially. Why not try to flip it back to we don't do signs. We don't do that many signs. We do more internet marketing.
So that's a really great point. I like that you brought that up. But look how you phrase that as a statement, as you were telling me, and you were telling the consumer, as opposed to asking them a question to have them process that, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that's a really great point. You probably don't see a whole lot of signs. Let me ask you a question. In this day and age, in the year 2020, what do you think is more important? Do you think that people are looking for more homes by driving around and looking for them? Or perhaps do you think that having a digital presence, a digital marketing plan would be more advantageous to selling a home in this market? What do you think? Right? Because here's the thing. The answer of that question is going to directly relate to how valid that statement's going to be. Because if they don't believe, if they're older in age and they don't dial into digital marketing or they don't dial into social media as much, they're not going to see the value as much as somebody else is. Now, in our market, the average homeowner sells their home about once every 14 years. The market was a lot different 14 years ago than it is today, right? And not everyone is as savvy and as using the internet. Everybody uses at different levels of degree. So I do think, Michael, with that, yes, there is no wrong answer with the way that you should act to rebuttal. You need to play to your strengths. And if you're going into a market area and you don't have a whole lot of listings and your company don't have a lot of listings, then yes, if one of your strengths is the digital marketing component, then you need to play to your strengths. But you need to play to your strengths in the form of asking questions and not so much as statements. And if that's going to be your gameplay, you need to make sure that you're very heavy on your pre-meeting packet that goes out, and then any type of nurturing that you do for any type of listing, like any type of videos that you sent to them, any type, your website, you should be sending that information over to people to allow them to do their own discovery before you have your conversation with them. Guys, because here's the thing. If you meet with a person who is not adequately to their satisfaction gone through their own discovery, right? And all of us do it. All of us have a question we ask Google. All of us geek out because it takes a fraction of a second to get all this tons of information. So all of us are doing research on anything that we're looking to buy, including houses, including choosing an agent, including choosing a doctor or a dentist. My insurance is renewing. So we're looking, we're doing tons of research. Like Google's my main buddy right now. So you have to play to your strengths, but you also have to make sure that you're nurturing things so that when you're having that conversation, this objection is easier taken, right? Great question, Michael. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So let me go back into sharing my screen. Okay, so the next objection, I don't want to sell, I'm going to die in this property. Now, this was legitimately a objection that someone put when they signed up for week 40 role playing. And I can tell you that I have gotten this objection before, and I don't think I've gotten it very often, right? But here's the thing. People will listen to you as long as you're informational and you're entertaining. So I typically kind of go that route. I like to be informational, and I like to crack jokes and such throughout, kind of lightens the mood. But I don't want to sell my property. I'm going to die in this property. So guys, you have to go back to pre-qualifying this list. If you're having a conversation at the kitchen table and this came up, you did not adequately pre-qualify this candidate before that.
Hey, Brett.
Right? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so I'm the one that submitted this question. And let me just give you a little background real quick so you know what's happening. I do a lot of cold calling to total strangers, and that's where I'm getting this objection. These people don't know me. They never talked to me before. They have no idea who I am. So, and this is what they tell me. Look, we're not interested. I don't want to sell. I'm going to die in this property. So it's not so much at the listing table. I just want to clarify that for you.
Okay. So this is a cold outreach.
Absolutely. Stone cold.
So what this is a blow-off answer, right?
Absolutely.
Guys, when you guys are calling cold, the colder the audience that you're going to call, let me go back. This is a saying that I often say. People make time for things that are important, okay? People make time for things that are important. This is true for me. This is true for you. My wife could call me right now on the phone in the middle of this, and she could call me once. I'll probably send it to voicemail. But if she calls me back again, you guys are going on pause and I'm answering that call because whatever happening at home that she feels that she needs to blow up my phone a little bit to get my attention is more important than anything that I'm doing. So that just kind of gives you the context. So the good thing is that if that ever happens in the future, you guys are going to understand why. So when you're calling somebody cold, there are two things that they're looking at that's going on in their mind. Okay, number one, especially if it's an unidentified number or a blocked number, you guys do this, I do this. Who's calling me? That's the number one question. And now they're like, oh God, should I answer that call? Right? That's the internal dialogue that everybody has. And then the number two question is going to be, what the heck do you want? And then you have to accept the fact that if you're if you're doing cold outreach, that what's going to happen is that they're going to give you a blow off. I'm not interested. That's fine, right? So perhaps you need to go with a different talk track. Now, I'm a fan of scripts. I am a fan of the Mike Ferry scripts. I think that every single real estate script that is in the market right now has its origins in the Mike Ferry scripts, which means he's like the Chinese Shaolin Temple of real estate sales training, right? It originated with him. So, but depending on the talk, having a talk track is the next step up from that, right? You know your scripts, you know them verbatim, just like Kung Fu. You're not going to get into a fight and start busting out a funky little Asian dance, right? You're going to start improvising, and you're going to be working your talk track. That's what a talk track is. So I don't want to sell, I'm going to die in this property. Now, you could be funny, right? You could say, oh, thank you for sharing with Matt. I don't happen to know if you have a date on when you think that you're going to die, do you? That would be called a little bit of funny. That's going to be called, might send the mood the wrong direction, but it's a pattern interrupt. They're not expecting you to say something like that, right? And if it starts going the wrong way, I'm really sorry. That clearly didn't hit the impact that I intended it to be. Well, look, the reason I'm calling is because my name is Brett. I'm with Keller Williams. Look, I work with a lot of buyers in the area, and we're just not finding a hole on the market. I was reaching out to homeowners like yourself and just seeing, do you know of anyone that's looking to buy or sell right now that's not already on the market? Do you know of anyone like that? Right. So now you turned it away from a sales call into an inquiry call. Now people are like saying, Brad, that's not the script. We're going for listings. Yeah, I get it. Guys, we're having a conversation, right? We're having a conversation with a cold outreach. I want them to think, and I quite literally, I mean, if you're in our market, there's a 31% fewer homes on the market than there was in August of last year. So to call around homeowners telling them that you have a buyer that where they haven't found anything they like, do you know of anyone in your neighborhood or in your area that might be looking to sell that's not already on the market? They might be looking to sell and they're not already in the market. And by God, a real estate agent just called me up and he has a buyer. I don't have to put my home on the market. I don't have to have strangers walking through the house and contaminating everything and touching things. Look, okay, so number one. But number two, you know what, Brett, thank you for calling, but no, we don't know anyone. You know what, great. Thanks for thinking about that. If you don't mind me asking, have you guys ever thought about taking advantage of the crazy market that we're in right now? I don't know if you, or, hey, thank you for thinking about it, but look, I don't know if you know this, but home prices in your area, homes are selling for more than the history of forever. And I'm wondering, what about you guys? Would you be open to considering moving, or when do you plan on moving, or something along those lines? Right? So you've got to get past that. You have to accept the fact that it's a cold call. You're not that important. Look, someone just called my phone. They called my office phone. If they're calling my office phone, they're not that important, because anyone who's important, they actually have my cell phone number. And even then I might not answer it just because I have a pretty blocked schedule, but I do my best. So, but Michael, seeing how this was your objection, does that help you?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm a little different. So when I get that, I tell them, you know what, that's exactly what I expected you to say. Just sort of curious, what do you like about your neighborhood? Because it's a really nice neighborhood. And I try to get them talking that way.
I wouldn't go into that, because when you start going into that second level of a conversation, you got to have rapport, right? Okay. That's one of the things that I find, that when people go cold outreach, they start going into questions. Like if you were to ask me that and a salesman asked me something like that after I told you that, I'm planning on dying in this house, and then you asked me about my neighborhood and how long I've lived in the area, I'm like, well, why do you care? That's me. And I vocalize a lot of things that people don't. So I actually said that to someone. I think I shared that with you guys last week. I'm like, who cares? Why do you want to know? Like I don't know you from Adam, right? Yeah. So it's all about building rapport. And remember, when somebody's calling, when you're calling them, they want to know who you are and what do you want, right? Oh, yeah. They don't want to chit chat with you, right? They're not interested to build a relationship with you. Not yet. You don't have rapport yet.
Yeah, well, the first two things I say when I call them is I give them my name, the company that I'm with, and then I ask them point blank, hey, do you know anyone in your community that may be interested in selling? Again, I try to.
Are you telling them that you have an active buyer?
No, I don't.
Try that. Say, look,
Okay.
I'm working with some buyers in your area. We've looked at everything on the market, just can't find anything. So I'm reaching out to great homeowners like you, and I'm just asking, do you know of anyone who might be looking to sell right now that's not already on the market? See what they say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they might think about it for a second, but you know what? They might say that means that you've identified yourself and you've given the call a purpose, right?
That's
It's not a
correct.
sales call, it's an inquiry. Say,
Yeah.
look, I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm having a hell of a time trying to find a buyer for this home. There's just not that much selection. I'm reaching out to all the homeowners. You know, the reason I'm calling is because I'm reaching out. So you have to throw that reason behind it.
That's what I
Is
do.
because, I'm reaching out to homeowners because I'm having a hell of a time. And do you happen to know anyone in your area that's looking to buy or sell to get the most money out of their home, whatever you want to say, that's not already in the market? See how that goes for you. I bet you're going to find that you're going to have a more comfortable conversation, right? And then they're going to say no. And they're going to say, okay, well, thanks for thinking about it. You know, I don't know if you know this, but homes are selling for more now than the history of forever. You know, have you guys ever given any thought? It's very non-threatening. Have you guys given any thought to ever maybe capitalizing on this market by selling your home?
Okay.
Nope. No, I haven't. Okay, well, I appreciate your call. And then kind of move on. So here's one thing that people kind of that I feel that people kind of go in the wrong direction. Prospecting is lead generation. Prospecting is lead generation. Prospecting is not relationship building. Prospecting is going out and finding those nuggets of gold that you can start refining, right? So the key to actually, in my mind, on prospecting is hammer through those numbers as fast as you humanly possible so that you can get the most contacts as possible. So you can ask two questions. I have a buyer. Who do you know that's not already on the market? And number two, what about you? Would you perhaps are you guys looking to take advantage of this market? And quite honestly, guys, you've heard me say this before. Anyone who's looking to sell their home, given the uncertainty of times, I think it's absolutely foolish for any seller to sit on the sidelines to wait and see what happens. I have a good idea what's going to happen. Even if it doesn't happen, it's going to happen a little bit worse than what we're at now. So we have time for one more. And this is one that comes up a lot lately. I don't want to reduce the sales price. Now, guys, if somebody comes up directly and says, I don't want to reduce my sales price, the first question you have to ask is why? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that you don't want to reduce the sales price. You know, when we initially spoke, you want to sell your home for the most money in the quickest amount of time. Is that still the case? Yes, Brett, that is the case. Okay, so one thing's for certain right now is that we're not going to sell it in the fastest time possible. Do you have an idea of why? Right? I'm asking them the question. Okay, if I'm having this conversation about a price reduction, that means we've been having this home on the market for a long time before it sells, right? So therefore, statistically, the best time to sell it or to the most activity a property is going to get is the first 2 or 3 weeks on the market. So if you're 2 or 3 weeks in on the market and your home hasn't sold, then we've just eliminated the fastest time possible and the highest price possible. What we did identify is that the highest price possible is too high. So the question is, why is it that you don't want to reduce your price? Well, Brett, I think that my home has this awesome pool, and I think that this has this and this has this. Guys, this is going to come down to, this is not just a one-liner rebuttal. This is a serious decision that a homeowner's making. It's very easy for us to come up to ask them to reduce their price, and most of them are going to look at us saying, well, yeah, you're a salesperson. Of course you're going to want me to reduce your price because you're going to collect a commission at the end. Yes, that is exactly why I do what I do. I don't do this for charity. Otherwise, I would be a discount broker doing things for free. But if you're going to go into a sales price conversation, you better have a compelling reason or a compelling presentation to present to them with a lot of questions that's going to guide them down the path to making a decision. Now, that decision is either going to be, yes, let's reduce the price, or that decision is going to be, no, let's not reduce the price, or maybe a combination of the two, right? But then after you get to that point, you got to have supporting data, right? You can't just say, hey, I want you to reduce the price by $50,000 just because I want you to reduce the price by $50,000 so I can collect my fat commission at the end. That's not going to work. But what is going to work is that you need to be the expert on your market. You know, I just did a training class in our office yesterday, and they're probably starting to look at me as a broken record, because the one activity that most agents do that I feel is the most vital thing amongst everything is previewing property. If you're not previewing property, you don't know the market. And if you don't know the market, you're going to have a very difficult time in convincing somebody that their house is worth less than what it is. So you're going to have that compelling information. Take some time, maybe go and preview. I recommend to all the agents that I work with that if you're going to go on a listing presentation, go preview all the houses that are competing with it in the market area before you have that listing presentation. Because you can't price a property without knowing the competition, right? And that's true with anything. You know, if you have a 2020 Honda and I have a 2020 Honda and I'm listing mine for, you know, $30,000 and you're selling yours for $15,000, and me not knowing that, someone's going to probably buy your Honda before they buy mine. So you need to know that. But the only way that you're going to be able to change the seller's belief or their belief on their pricing is by providing the market data, the market information, and then asking them questions about that so that they process that in their head, right? Telling somebody what 2 + 2 is versus walking I use that because I have elementary school age children. Telling them the answer of 2 + 2 = 4 is not going to do any difference if you don't walk them through how the addition makes sense, right? This is a business conversation. Now, they may not be able to do it. You know, this is part of, you can't rebuttal a condition. Maybe they owe a lot more money than what the property is selling for right now, right? That's not very common, but I bet you in the near future, I don't know when, but I bet you that's going to be more common. And then the question is, well, look, if you sell your home now, you're going to realize this kind of loss. Do you think that realizing this kind of loss is better than realizing this kind of loss? Well, yeah. Okay, well, what would you do if we don't sell this home? Couldn't you rent it out? You know, be a problem solver. No, I can't rent it out. Okay, I'm curious. Why can't you rent it out? Because we need to sell this home to buy the next home. Okay, fair. So we need to sell this home. What would happen? Can you stay here and not sell the home? Maybe what I'm thinking is going to happen is not going to happen, and you can just, you know, continue to, the properties will just appreciate to Mars. Can you do that? No, I can't do that. Our house is just too small. Okay, can you, instead of buying a new house, can you expand the size of your current house? No, we can't do that. Okay, so now you're eliminating all the things on why they can't. Okay, so we need to sell this home, right? Do you agree that we should probably sell this home sooner than later? Yeah. Do you think that it's better to sell the home in the market that we know than a market and gambling on the market that we don't? No, I want to sell it now. Okay, so can you tell me why you think that your home is worth $50,000 more than the similar house that just sold 2 weeks ago for that? And then quiet, right? Guys, as professional salespeople, we are problem solvers. Objections are nothing but problems. That's it. They don't want to reduce the price. Why don't you want to reduce the price? Now they're going to tell you what your problem is. Now your job is to find a solution to that problem. And if you find a solution to that problem, you're going to get a price reduction, and you're actually going to be able to sell that and collect a commission. I know, easier said than done. But guys, for all of you that showed up live, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys attending, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Have a great Tuesday.